Odin's quest for wisdom, sacrifice at the world tree. There are stories that speak in thunder, and stories that whisper in wind. But then there are stories that breathe in the stillness between heartbeats, in the quiet space where courage becomes something harder, something deeper. Not the courage to swing a sword or face an enemy, but the courage to confront truth itself, even when truth burns, even when it leaves scars no one else can see. This is that kind of story, long before men carved runes into stone, before kings raised their halls, before even the youngest gods knew their own strength. There was a question that haunted the highest seat in Asgard. What is the price of knowing? And who among the gods would dare pay it? The answer, whispered through ages and sagas, spoken in fireside tales and the hush of winter nights, is always the same. Only Odin, not because he was fearless, he feared many things. Not because he was flawless, his flaws carved half the world's fate, but because Odin alone carried the burden of seeing what others refused to look at. He was a king, yes, but a king with a restless heart, one that could not settle for comfort or the easy shield of ignorance. Something inside him, older than his own bones, longed for truth the way a starving man longs for bread. The tale begins not in battle, nor in the high seats of the Golden Hall, but in a moment of uneasy quiet. Asgard lay under the pale glow of dawn. Frost clung to the rooftops, shimmering like a thin layer of crushed diamonds. Early rising spirits moved through the courtyards with slow, sleepy purpose, their footsteps soft on the stone. Even the ravens were still. Hugin and Munin perched silently on the high beams of the great hall, their black feathers absorbing the cold morning light. Odin sat alone, his throne, Hlidskjalf, towered behind him, carved with stories from older ages. But he did not sit upon it. Instead, he sat on the steps below, elbows on his knees, hands steepled beneath his chin, staring into the distance. Not the distance across the land. He could see that at any time, but a distance within, a horizon that never stopped retreating. No matter how far he traveled, no matter how many secrets he gathered, his face, stern, weathered, strong, carried a tightness this morning. A tension born not of war or politics, but of silence. Something had shifted in the fabric of the world. Something small but unmistakable, like the first crack in an axe handle that foretells of breaking long before the blow. He couldn't name it yet, but he felt it. Inside the hall, footsteps approached, soft, deliberate. Frigg emerged, her presence gentle as snowfall, yet steady as the roots of Yggdrasil itself. She studied her husband quietly, the way only she could, seeing not the All-Father, but the man inside the myth. "You have not slept," she observed. Odin didn't deny it. "Sleep is a luxury I can't afford." Frigg moved to sit beside him. "You've said that since before the world was finished." He exhaled softly, almost a laugh, almost a sigh, and yet it remains true. Her gaze was kind but sharp. "Something troubles you." "Something always troubles me," he said. "But this feels different. Larger, closer." He paused, searching for words in a mind full of storms. "The runes whisper more faintly to me than before." Frigg blinked. "You, struggling to read the runes?" "Not struggling," he said quickly, then softened. "Straining, as though the pattern is moving faster than my understanding." Frigg studied him for a long moment. "You think knowledge is slipping from your grasp." Odin's jaw tightened. "I think knowledge is slipping into shadows I can't yet reach." Frigg placed a hand over his, then reached further. He looked at her with something like gratitude and something like fear. "Reaching further," he said, "may require a price that cannot be returned." Frigg's hand did not move. "Then weigh that price carefully." He did not answer, but deep inside, the decision had already begun to form, heavy as a stone dropped into a still pool. His raven stirred suddenly. Hugin thought beat his wings once. Munin memory hopped along the beam, feathers bristling. Odin looked up. "What did you see?" he asked softly. The raven's answer was a low croak, but Odin felt the meaning ripple through him. Something changes at the roots. The roots, Yggdrasil, the world tree. Odin stood immediately. Frigg rose with him. "You intend to go." "I must," Odin said. "Not alone," she warned. He touched her cheek gently, the only time his expression softened this morning. I love you for saying that, but this journey can only be made alone. Frigg's breath caught. You speak as one preparing for sacrifice. Odin did not lie. Sometimes the world asks for more than we wish to give. Hugin and Munin flew to his shoulders, sensing the shape of his resolve. Odin walked toward the hall's great doors, every step echoing through the silent chamber. As he passed the threshold, Frigg spoke softly, so softly only gods could hear. Come back to me. Odin paused, eyes closing briefly. I will return, but not unchanged. Then he stepped into the cold morning and began the long walk away from Asgard. The Bifrost shimmered faintly as he passed. Heimdall straightened weakly, for Idun had only recently returned, and the strength of the gods was still rising like a tide. But Odin did not require the Rainbow Bridge. His path led not outward to other realms, but downward, toward the roots, toward the well of Mimir, toward the truth that demanded blood. He traveled through fields of golden grass that trembled under the weight of his footsteps, through silent forests where elves and spirits watched from between the trees, through valleys still waking from winter's long breath. His ravens flew ahead, circling, scouting, guiding. The world grew quieter as he walked. The sky dimmed. The air thickened with ancient presence. This was not a place where mortals tread. This was the road to the heart of everything. The roots of Yggdrasil appeared first as tangled shadows on the horizon, massive, gnarled, twisting into the sky like petrified serpents. But as Odin came closer, they resolved into vast pillars of living wood, thick as mountains, pulsing with a slow heartbeat older than creation. He felt humbled just standing near them. The air tasted of sap and time. In the shadow of the deepest root lay the well, Mimisbrunner, the well of Mimir. Its waters were still, dark, reflective, but not like a mirror, more like an eye looking back at whoever dared look into it. And beside the well sat Mimir, the guardian of memory, the keeper of knowledge, the counselor whose wisdom had shaped gods and heroes long before Odin claimed a throne. But he did not greet Odin with warmth. He regarded him with a stern, measured stillness. You come again, All-Father. Odin nodded. I do. Mimir studied him with pale, ancient eyes. Seeking what you already know cannot be handed to you. I seek what must be earned, Odin said simply. Mimir's gaze sharpened. And you know the price. Odin inhaled slowly, letting the truth settle inside him fully for the first time. I do. Mimir rose from his seat, water rippling as his feet touched the surface without sinking. Then speak it aloud, so the world may hear your vow. Odin stepped forward. Hugin and Munin circled overhead, cawing nervously. The well glimmered faintly. The price, Odin said quietly, is myself. Not all of you, Mimir said. A piece, Odin echoed. Your eye, Mimir said. The world held its breath. Wind froze. Time tightened. Even the great tree seemed to strain its branches toward him. Odin did not flinch. I know. And why? Mimir asked, voice deep and reverent. Would the king of the gods give up half his sight? Odin's answer came without hesitation. To see more. Mimir nodded once. A pact sealed without parchment, without ritual, with nothing but resolve. Odin knelt at the edge of the well. The water pulsed, forming a dark circle beneath him. He placed his fingertips on the surface. It felt like touching eternity. Behind him, ravens croaked anxiously, but Odin's voice remained steady as stone. I give my eye, he said, to gain the wisdom needed to guard the worlds. Let me see beyond sight. Let me know what must be known. Mimir stepped forward, then drink. Odin leaned over the well, and with a single unflinching motion, he pressed his face into the waters. The world shattered. Odin plunged his face into the well, and in that instant the world split open, not with light, but with depth. The water did not feel like water. It felt like falling into every memory that had ever existed, and every memory that had not yet been formed. It felt like drowning and awakening at the same time. Sound vanished. Breath vanished. Even thought became thin, stretched into a thread that threatened to snap. The surface did not ripple. It swallowed. Cold. Not the cold of winter, but the cold of unformed reality. Pressed against his skin, sank into his bones, wrapped around his skull. And then something deeper gripped him. A pull. A pressure. A demand. The well did not take gently. It demanded tribute with all the indifference of the cosmos. The pain came next, at first a tightening in his temples, then a stab so violent it erased every other sensation. It was not pain like a wound, or a fire, or a broken bone. It was the pain of loss, stripped to its purest form, a ripping not of flesh, but of perspective. The world reeled. Odin's breath choked in his throat. His fingers dug into the earth to steady himself. But even the earth seemed to tilt beneath him. A voice, not Mimir, but something older, whispered at the bottom of the well, echoing through his mind. To see what others cannot, you must give what others will not. The pressure built, surged, and with a burst like shattering glass, Odin's right eye was taken. A tide of agony rushed through him. His cry echoed through the roots of Yggdrasil, through the caverns that slept beneath the earth, through the far edges of the 9 realms. Even the wind flinched. The ravens shrieked and beat their wings in frantic circles. But Odin did not pull away. He forced his face deeper into the water. And then, vision returned. Not as sight, as knowing. He saw without seeing. Threads of fate twisting, weaving, splitting. Battles not yet fought. Choices not yet made. He saw heroes yet unborn. He saw wolves running along the edge of tomorrow. He saw fire swallowing worlds, and worlds reborn from ash. He saw betrayal, loyalty, ruin, triumph. He saw the gods, his family, his people, standing on a precipice, their future trembling like a flame in wind. And then deeper still, he saw the runes. They were not symbols. They were truths, hard, absolute, glowing with power. They floated in the dark like stars arranged by thought, not by distance. Each rune carried a story, a formula, a law older than the tree whose roots he knelt beside. They whispered to him, not in words, but in meaning. Give, learn, bind, break, lead, fall, return. Odin reached for them. The runes recoiled, not out of malice, but recognition that he was not yet worthy to wield them. That knowledge of this magnitude demanded more than a single sacrifice. The vision collapsed. Odin tore his face from the water, gasping like someone dragged from the bottom of the sea. Blood streaked down his cheek from the empty place where his eye had been. His breath came ragged. His hand shook violently. Mimir stood beside him, expression unreadable but not unkind. "Now you know the price," he said softly. Odin wiped the blood from his cheek. "I know only the beginning." "Good," Mimir said, "because wisdom is not the water. Wisdom is the wound." Odin rose, or tried to. His knees buckled. Hugin and Munin fluttered around him anxiously, their wings brushing his shoulders as though to steady him. But Odin pushed himself upright. He felt different. He was different. The world outlined itself in new shapes. Sounds mapped themselves along patterns he had never heard. Even the air seemed threaded with invisible paths, leading to places only insight could travel. But something else tugged at him, something unresolved. The runes. The well had shown them, yes, but only as visitors glimpsed through a doorway. They had not accepted him. They had not revealed themselves fully. They had offered no allegiance. To wield the runes, he would need more, much more. He looked up into the branches of Yggdrasil, towering, sacred, immense. They stretched into infinity, leaves whispering with the breath of creation. A realization shook him. The well had taken his eye. The tree demanded something deeper. Mimir watched the change crossing Odin's face. "You intend to go further," he said quietly. "Yes." "Then understand, All-Father," Mimir murmured, "that the tree does not simply take blood. It takes being." Odin did not hesitate. "I am ready." "No," Mimir said. "You are willing, but nobody is ready." Odin did not argue. He only looked again into the vastness of Yggdrasil. Branches like the veins of the world, roots like the memories of the cosmos, bark like the bones of giants, sap like the heartbeat of existence. Odin stepped forward, placing his hand against the immense trunk. It pulsed faintly, alive, aware, older than all things that breathed. Within its presence, he felt tiny, not king, not god, just a question. "I must learn the runes," Odin whispered. Not glimpsed, not borrowed, earned. The tree did not answer. Its silence was its answer. Odin turned to Mimir. "I will hang myself." Mimir's eyes closed briefly, a flicker of sorrow passing across his ancient features. 9 days. Yes, Odin said. No food. No drink. Yes. No aid. I know. You may die. I may, Odin said calmly. But ignorance would kill far more. And so he prepared. He climbed the roots until he found a place where the branches stretched outward in a massive arc, like the ribs of a colossal beast. There he looped a coil of rope, made not of hemp but of his own will, summoned through ancient magic, binding physical and spiritual essence together. He tied the noose. Mimir stood below, watching silently. Hugin and Munin perched on a low branch, uneasy, their wings trembling. Odin stepped into the loop. The wind shifted. The sky dimmed. The tree groaned. Recognizing what was about to happen, Odin looked down one last time. Then he whispered, "I sacrifice myself to myself." And he stepped off the branch. The rope snapped tight, and Odin hung, suspended between life and death, suspended between breath and meaning, suspended between knowing and becoming, for 9 days. The first moment after the rope tightened was silence, an immense, swallowing silence that pressed into Odin's ears like wool. The world around him faded into a muted haze. Even the distant groaning of Yggdrasil's endless branches seemed to draw inward, becoming a quiet heartbeat beneath reality. Odin hung suspended, his breath wheezing through his nostrils in shallow, controlled gasps. Pain coursed through the muscles of his neck, shoulders, ribs. His arms dangled toward the world below, fingers brushing the void between branches. His one remaining eye blinked against the cold, scanning the blurred horizon. He could not move without burning agony. He could not rest without sliding closer to death. But he had expected this. He embraced it. The tree swayed faintly, rocked by winds that formed before the gods themselves. Each movement strained the rope, grinding the fibers against his skin. Every heartbeat became a hammer stroke of pressure against his throat. But Odin held still, mind focused on a single purpose: to reach a kind of wisdom that could only be touched in suffering. On the first day, hunger gnawed at him. Thirst shriveled his throat. Shadows shifted in the corners of his sight like flickering memories. His body trembled with fatigue, but his mind remained sharp, anchored by determination. The runes, distant still, hidden in the roots of the tree and the well beneath, waited. By the second day, cold settled deep into his bones. His breath formed small clouds that drifted upward like ghosts. Wolves prowled below the tree, real or imagined. He could not be sure. Their silver eyes glimmered in the dark, watching him without pity. Odin ignored them. By the third day, his thoughts began to unravel, not with panic, but with a strange, slow erosion. Memories slid together like overlapping waves. He saw moments from ages past, his youth in the shadow of Ymir's fall, the forging of the 9 realms, the raising of Asgard's walls, the countless battles fought to stabilize creation. They played behind his eyelid like distant dreams. But something else crept in, visions of what had not yet occurred. He saw a wolf, massive, snarling, with fur black as cosmic void, snapping chains around its legs. Fenrir. He saw the serpent Jormungand coiling beneath the sea, growing larger each season. He saw fire giants gathering sparks in the depths of Muspelheim, their swords blazing with the promise of war. The future whispered, not clearly, but insistently. By the 4th day, Odin felt his spirit loosening from his body. Hunger was no longer a sharp ache. It was a constant hum that blended into the breath of the tree itself. His one eye stared at distant worlds he could no longer name. He drifted between sleep and waking, each state indistinguishable from the other. The rope cut deeper into his skin. His limbs grew numb. His heartbeat slowed. He waited. He endured. On the 5th day, the vision sharpened. He saw the gods, Thor, with his hammer lifted, facing a storm that blotted out the sky. Loki, laughing and crying at once, a tear of fire falling from his cheek. Freyr facing a giant with no sword in hand. Heimdall raising his horn with blood dripping down his side. The world burned around them. Why? Odin croaked, voice shredded. Must this be? No answer came, yet the question stayed, circling like a hawk above dying prey. The 6th day brought delirium. The sky turned green. The branches above twisted into ancient faces, some kind, some scowling, some whispering things he couldn't understand. The wolves below were gone. Instead, Shadows slithered across the ground in shapes that mocked human form. Odin could not tell if they were spirits or hallucinations. Pain pulsed like a drum. His breath rattled. His skin burned with fever. But beneath the suffering, something stirred. A sense of nearness. The runes were closer. He could feel them, waiting. By the seventh day, Odin had forgotten the world. His mind floated in darkness. Memories slipped through his fingers like sand. He remembered Frigg, her calm voice, her gentle eyes, but her name eluded him. He remembered his ravens, but could not recall which one was thought and which was memory. He remembered his sons, so many sons, each a piece of fate, but their faces blurred in his mind. Only purpose remained. Purpose kept him tethered to himself. Purpose kept him breathing. Purpose kept him hanging. On the eighth day, his heart faltered. The rope tightened with every breath. His vision tunneled. Flashes of white exploded behind his eyelid. His hands twitched, fingers curling inward like dying leaves. He felt himself slipping, losing the thread of consciousness, drifting into a place where gods go when they fall, but are not yet dead. And in that slipping, the runes flickered, just at the edge of his mind, just out of reach. Shapes formed from nothing, lines, curves, intersecting strokes that hummed with meaning too vast for mortal language. They hovered like constellations rearranged by ancient hands, but he could not touch them. Not yet, not until he crossed fully into the brink. The ninth day came quietly. No wind stirred, no wolves howled. The tree held its breath. And Odin was barely a whisper of himself. His skin pale, his lips cracked, his breath faint. His eye looked out at nothing and everything. His heart stuttered in his chest, like an old drum trying to remember its rhythm. And in that moment, when life and death held equal claim, the world cracked open. The runes appeared, not as distant symbols, not as visions, but as a revelation. They burned into existence before him, each one a spark of truth, pulled from the marrow of the universe. They formed a circle around him, glowing with an intelligence so profound it seemed alive. The air vibrated with music older than sound. The tree trembled, leaves shivering. Odin gasped. The runes whispered, and then they entered him. A surge of power ripped through his body, burning away weakness, cutting through fever, splitting the fog in his mind. Insight crashed down like lightning. Knowledge of language, fate, magic creation, secrets of the cosmos, laws of existence, the paths that connect thought to matter, the shape of destiny, the weight and gift of sacrifice. Odin cried out, not in pain this time, but in awe. He understood. Not everything, not even the runes granted omniscience, but enough. Enough to lead, enough to warn, enough to prepare, enough to fear, enough to hope. The rope snapped. Odin fell, not with terror, but with purpose. He struck the ground with a force that should have killed him, but the tree cradled him. Yggdrasil, guardian of all things, softened the blow, letting him roll gently across the roots. He lay there gasping, half dead and newly born. Mimir stepped forward, looking down at him with solemn respect. You have seen, Mimir said softly, and you have earned. Odin pushed himself upright, one palm against the root, to steady himself. His body ached with 1,000 wounds. His empty eye socket throbbed. His throat felt flayed raw. But his mind was a blazing storm. I have learned, Odin rasped, but I have also seen an ending. A terrible one. Mimir nodded. Wisdom is a burden. Odin's remaining eye burned with new fire. Then I will carry it. Hugin and Munin swooped down, circling him, brushing his shoulders with their wings. Memory and thought anchored him, guiding him back to himself. And Odin rose, not as the god he was, as the god he became. Bearer of runes, keeper of secrets, watcher of fate, the All-Father in full truth. He bowed once to Mimir. I will return, Odin said. And when you do, Mimir replied, you will carry both the weight of knowing and the fear of what cannot be changed. Odin turned away from the well. His steps were slow, but steady. Each one carried him closer to Asgard, closer to destiny, closer to the long road toward Ragnarok. And as he walked, the runes whispered from within him, guiding, cautioning, illuminating. They had accepted him, and he would use them, for better, for worse, forever. Odin's return to Asgard was not marked by drums or trumpets or the clash of shields. It was marked by silence, the kind of silence that wraps around a man who has seen something too vast to put into words. His steps were slow, uneven at first, but purposeful, every movement shaped by the rune light pulsing beneath his skin. The ravens guided him. They flew ahead when the path was clear, circled him when he faltered, and croaked warnings when the shadows lengthened. Their presence steadied him. Hugin's quick intelligence wove around him like a map. Munin's deep memory held him firm, preventing his mind from drifting into the whirlpool of new knowledge. As the great gates of Asgard approached, the sky brightened. The warmth of home spilled over the hills in golden waves. Spirits and warriors paused in their duties, staring at the lone figure walking toward them. Blood dried on his cheek, one eye missing, yet radiance glowing beneath his skin like embers beneath ash. Thor was the first to step forward. He slowed as he approached, his usual booming confidence replaced by something quieter, heavier with emotion. Thor had fought giants, monsters, storms, but this was different. This was his father returning from a place no hammer could reach. "Father," Thor said softly. The word felt strangely fragile on his tongue. "You're changed." Odin managed a faint smile. "Change," he said, was the point. Frigg came shortly after, moving with swift, controlled steps. Her eyes, usually calm as still water, brimmed with worry and relief intertwined. She reached for him, but stopped inches away, not out of fear, but reverence, as though unsure if touching him might disturb the delicate balance, holding his new self together. "Odin," she whispered, "your eye." "It was the price," he murmured, "and one willingly paid." She cupped his face gently and pressed her forehead to his. "As long as the rest of you returns to me." Odin closed his remaining eye and rested against her touch. For a moment, a brief, human moment, the weight lifted. Then he straightened. There was work to do. They walked together toward the central courtyard where the Aesir gathered. The gods formed a wide semicircle, their faces a mixture of awe, confusion, and quiet dread. They felt something different in the air, something that shimmered beneath the surface of reality. Odin stood before them. The wind fell silent. The leaves on Yggdrasil's branches overhead stopped rustling. Even the stones seemed to listen. "I have gone to the roots," Odin said, his voice echoing softly through the open hall. "I have sought what lies hidden, what lies beneath, what lies beyond the edge of reason." No one interrupted, not even Loki. Odin continued, "And I have seen that knowledge is not a gift freely given. It is a weight carved from one's own flesh." He did not speak of the visions, of Ragnarok, of wolves and serpents, of fire swallowing the sky. He kept those truths tucked deep within, where only he and the runes could whisper about them. Some knowledge, he understood, must be carried alone. "But understand this," he said. "We are strong not because we wield swords or hammers or spells. We are strong because we are willing to learn, even when learning hurts, even when truth demands sacrifice." A quiet murmur rippled through the gods. Freya bowed her head in solemn respect. Tyr nodded once, acknowledging the magnitude of Odin's deed. Idun pressed a hand to her heart, feeling the truth of his words resonate within her. Loki watched from the shadows at the edge of the courtyard, his face unreadable. For once, he offered no smirk, no cutting comment, only silence, a rare and telling gesture. The runes pulsed faintly beneath Odin's skin. He felt them arrange themselves like gears in a great unseen machine. Each one clicked into place, forming connections between thought and meaning, action and fate. But with this new clarity came something else. Responsibility. For knowledge showed not only the path forward, but the consequences of every step. He now saw the weight of each choice, each word spoken, each alliance formed, each feud left to fester. He understood more, but understanding made everything heavier. Later, when the gathering dispersed and the gods returned to their duties, Frigg walked beside him to the quiet gardens behind the hall, places where they often spoke in private, away from the eyes of Asgard. They sat beneath a birch tree whose leaves trembled in the breeze. Odin exhaled slowly. The exhaustion of the 9 days hung around him like a cloak of lead. Frigg watched him, her eyes tracing the bruised skin around his empty socket. "Tell me what you saw," she said gently. Odin shook his head. "Not now. Perhaps not ever fully. But know this, there is danger ahead. Many dangers, and not all can be defeated. Frigg's face softened with sadness. Then why seek the truth? Odin closed his eye, letting the cool wind wash over him, because ignorance kills more surely than prophecy. They sat in silence a while. Finally, Frigg reached out and took his hand. If danger comes, she said, we face it together. Wisdom is not a burden meant for one alone. Odin gave a faint smile, one filled with gratitude and sorrow intertwined. Some burdens, my love, cannot be shared. But he squeezed her hand all the same. Above them, Hugin landed on a branch. Munin landed beside him. They cawed softly, an echo of thought and memory, and Odin felt something like balance settle inside him. Not peace. He would never have peace. Not truly, but clarity. That, at least, he had earned. He rose slowly from the bench, straightening his cloak, his posture transforming once more into that of the All-Father. There's more yet to gain, he murmured. More yet to learn. Frigg sighed softly. Then where next? Odin's gaze drifted toward the distant horizon, to the lands of dwarves and giants, to the places where poetry is distilled from creation itself, to wells and caverns and halls that held secrets even the runes only hinted at, to the mead. Odin said quietly, the mead that carries the voice of creation. If I am to guide this world, I must learn not only the truths of fate, but the power of words. Frigg nodded slowly. The mead of poetry. Odin touched the scar beneath his missing eye. Yes, its knowledge must be mine. He took a deep breath. The journey was not over. It had only begun.